broadcasting. Touchdowns. Shut your mouth, broadcasting. First round draft pick. Believe we got stats, kid. Quarterback stacking. 100-yard dashing. So tap in for the action. What teams got traction?
Welcome to the Sim Podcast Show. I'm your co-host, Eric, and I'm always joined by my co-host, Ron. What up, Ron?
What's going on?
You know what we do? We talk about the National Football League on a weekly basis, including the playoffs. Ron, we just had week 14. We're going into week 15. Normally, I would ask you, how do you feel? But this week, I'm going to ask you, who's your daddy? Who's your daddy? Who is the Steelers' granddaddy?
Yeah, listen, Tomlin, you know, he can't beat the Patriots. He can't beat Bill Belichick. I don't know what else to say. You guys own the Steelers. You own Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, you know how Aaron owns the Bears?
Mm-hmm.
We should just have a thing, a certificate that says we own the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Absolutely.
Yes. So we're going to talk about the NFL news. We're going to talk about our week 14 recap. We're going to talk about our power rankings, our upset specials, and then we're going to finish with the coaches that we think are either A, going to get fired, or B, are really, really in the hot. And I don't even call it a hot seat. It's like just like blazing white hot seat.
Yeah.
So
And it's a long list.
It's a long list. So let's kick it off with NFL news. And Ron, I put this in there. The refs strike again. Mahomes loses it on national TV. Loses it so bad that he tells Josh Allen, and on top of that, he goes on the podium and just spills his guts. So I don't want to knock him for doing that, but at the same time, come on, dude. I like you've been there.
Yeah, I'm gonna knock him. Like, give me a break, right? He's like, his team are the ones who've probably been on the right side of officiating for the past 2 or 3 years. The NFL wants, you know, Mahomes in the Super Bowl. You can't tell me the NFL doesn't want, you know, Kansas City to be there. So give me a break. The refs in this situation, they made the right call. So, you know, for him to go out there and Reed to go out there and embarrass themselves, it was horrible. I think there's other teams that have real grievances. Steelers, there was a bad call in the Steelers game.
Terrible call.
You know, and officiating has just been poor, right? It's not to say that they've been good, but in that specific incident, you know, I think the refs were in the right, and shame on Mahomes and Reed for looking like clowns.
They did look bad, and I know that the next day they walked it back because obviously the team wasn't, you know, the whole organization was embarrassed by it, so they walked it back. But it sheds light on, you know, we're week 14. What the hell are the refs doing? I know that this call was legit, but this been called.
Yeah, officiating has been terrible, plain and simple. It's been atrocious. I think the owners need to make Goodell address it and fix it. And I don't know what the solution is to fixing it, but they gotta, you know, whether it's like replay, you know, stuff like that. I don't know, but it's, you know, it's been bad. Critical calls at critical times. That's impacting, you know, the game, like who wins the game, who loses the game. That should not happen.
It should not happen at all, because if I know that your competitive juices are flowing and you're in this tight game and every play counts, so it's like, is it Kansas City against the Bills, or is it Kansas City against the Bills against the refs? It's like they insert themselves in the game, and I know that this was a legit call, but you know, as you mentioned earlier, what happened with the Pats Steelers game?
Yeah, that was a terrible
call.
And it wasn't the first time on special teams for the Steelers game that officials have blown it. You know, in the fourth quarter for the Steelers, you know, it was a false start call on the snapper. They said he moved. He didn't move anything that was abnormal, right? And that was a huge play. You know, that happened again 4 or 5 weeks ago, late in the game against the Steelers. So what can you say? Like, and it's not just the Steelers. Hey, it's happened across the entire league, there's been like horrific officiating, and to our knowledge, there's no consequence, right? There's consequences for players who go out and speak up against the officiating, and coaches that go out and speak against, officiating and get fined and stuff like that. But there's no consequences, as far as we're aware, for officials who jack up, make some really, really bad calls in the middle of a game.
And I just saw in the news that Roger Goodell defended the refs, telling them that they're doing a good job amidst all this
That's what
negative press.
He's there to make, to sell a product, right? To make, the NFL seem like, everything is great. There's nothing bad happening here. That's what he's there for. Whether it's with officiating or, any like off the field issues with certain players, he's going to try to, scrub it under the carpet, if you will, and pretend it doesn't exist. So, but I think the owners need to step up and say, hey, this is bad. It's costing my team a win. Like, we can't have this. We got to be better.
Yeah, they have to be much better. The other set of news is, Ron, the NFL is playing in Brazil. Why? Why are they playing? Brazil is not football,
No.
at least American football crazy.
Yeah.
Soccer reigns supreme in Brazil. So why?
Well, you know the answer to that.
Why? What's the answer?
Money. Everything comes down to money at the end of the day. So I don't know how money is impacting this, but it's money. I can tell you that.
Listen, I need
why are
to
we in
do the
Germany?
scrutiny. I understand Europe because that game we're just trying to spread the love, right?
So time. Let me forget about Europe, right? How come we haven't had a game in Canada? They play football in Canada. They play American football or Canadian football in Canada. Same sport for the most part, right? Rules slightly different. We can't.
But they have their own league. So that would be it would be like me setting up another NBA team.
That's not. They don't play at the same time. It is.
No, they're not going to touch the Canada. However,
Hawaii. Put a game in Hawaii.
Hawaii is different. They have the university. But what I'm saying is this: what is in Brazil? They don't know the rules. They don't know how it works. They just, it's perplexing to me that that was actually in there. Voted by the owners. So it's like whatever team they pick to go, you're gonna lose a home game. So what's to me is completely nonsense that they're playing in Brazil. It's nonsense.
It's got to be about the money. That's what it always comes down to at the end of the day. And I don't know if Brazil paid some sort of transaction fee to have the game, but I feel like it's like
FIFA move.
That's basically exactly what FIFA does, right? That's what the Olympics. That's how it happens, right? There's a lot of crooked stuff that happens with the Olympic bidding as well. So I don't know, man. It doesn't make sense. But it never really made sense for them to be in Germany or Mexico, to me, to be honest with you.
It makes sense in Europe because I know that they want to branch out. They want a couple of teams in Europe. I don't know how they're going to do it. But in Brazil, it just doesn't make sense. Do they want more fans? I don't know. It's very perplexing to me.
Yeah.
The other set of news is that the NFL wants to get rid of the hip drop tackle.
Terrible.
I know that there's been a lot of injuries this year because of this particular tackle style.
Not really.
You think so?
No.
Like the best players?
No. So last
Baltimore?
year, I heard a stat on this, like hip injuries because of hip drop tackles. I think last year, in the last couple of years, it's been like 3 players. 3. That's it. We're making a big deal based on who gets hurt. Like, so if it's a top player, then it's a big deal. I think it's just ridiculous and just another example exactly of the NFL just like completely turning on their own brand, making it an unrecognizable sport at this point. So the hip tackle is what it is. You got to get the player down. They're trying to like do everything to stay up, right? They're going to push you in your face, right? Push you to the ground. You got to be able to get them to the ground. And if you need to like do a hip tackle, then that's what you do. No one's trying to get anybody hurt. They're just trying to get you on the ground. So injuries happen. That's part of the game. Can you imagine like if this was like back in like the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, like we banned all these tackles and stuff?
See,
like,
this is a progression because remember 2007, Brady gets hurt. He got hurt. Nobody is allowed to go down on the quarterback. They remove that. This guy, the Baltimore tight end, gets hurt because of a hip drop tackle. They're gonna get eliminated. So this is what I mean. Like, is it really player safety, or is it more like, no, we don't want the star player to get hurt?
Yeah, that's all it is. And there's like, I don't know what the right answer is, but I don't like when player unions get too involved in stuff like this. You see the same thing with the NBA, right? It's just like if you give control to the players too much, then they're gonna come up with the dumbest rules. And if you give this, it's the same thing. If you give too much control to owners or these folks that are on the competition committee, some of them who probably never played a game of football before, it doesn't make sense either. So I don't know what the right approach is, but the game is fundamentally changing. It looks completely different, and it will look different 2 or 3, years from now. Hopefully it doesn't turn into flag football, but I just get the sense that's where it's going.
I've been telling you since day one of this podcast, we will eventually. I mean, they already removed playing football, like tackle football, from the Pro Bowl game. So it's just a matter of time when they decide, we should just have flag football all the time, and that's gonna be terrible. They already
Nobody's
have
gonna watch it.
Flag football in the Olympics, so that's, to me, like, how that's successful, how that run is gonna determine what happens next.
Yeah,
it's terrible. All right, Ron. As much as you don't like this, let's go over Week 14 recap. I had New England beating Pittsburgh 10-6. You had New England beating Pittsburgh 3-0. Final score was 21-18. Ron, we watched this game together from the very first start when TJ Watts got hurt. We knew this game was different.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, first of all, Pittsburgh, let me just level set, was favored by 6 points. I thought that was going to be too high to begin with, given the history, right? Tomlin and Belichick and how that's gone. 6 points seemed like a lot. Coming off a loss to the Cardinals didn't make any sense. But when you guys went out and scored right away, I think it was the first drive, right? All of a sudden, Zappe looking like Brady, that first half, and we spotted you guys 21 points. I'm like, that tells me that the players have given up, and the players have tuned Mike Tomlin out. And
I don't think completely.
Completely.
The second half,
they're going
we
through the
didn't
motions.
score at all. It was 0-0.
The defense stepped up. They did what they're supposed to.
Yeah.
But where were they the whole first half? Right. And I understand TJ was hurt, came back in when they probably shouldn't have come back in with concussion and all that. Highsmith gets hurt. You start the game with only 3 outside linebackers on the active roster for some stupid reason. I don't know why we decided to bench or make Golston inactive for this game. But just like every decision Tomlin's made throughout the year, it's backfired. This one backfired too. And you would think, like I said, coming off a loss to the Cardinals, that they would come out energized. That didn't happen at all that first half, and it was just like a complete shit show.
Well, it was weird because, first of all, it was a Thursday night game, so it was 4 days after they played, so you knew somebody was going to be off. I didn't think it was going to be Pittsburgh because it's the home game. They didn't have to travel, but it just made me realize that Zappe is a backup, right? Trubisky is a backup. So why was Zappe so much better than Trubisky?
I don't know. I don't know. So it's not to say, there's only so much. I don't think we can give too much credit to one thing versus the other. And what I mean by that is like Zappe played well, but I don't think that's a reflection necessarily of how good he can be or how good he is. I think it's more of a criticism on what's going on with Pittsburgh, period, and their defense. They just decided not to show up and they made him look like a Hall of Famer. With Mitch Trubisky, there's no, I understand the short week with, limited practice to get ready for the game. But having said that, you're getting paid $10 million a year, right, to be a backup. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier, prior to the show. Like, there's so many teams that are on their second or third quarterbacks right now, and teams have just not, they have not fully invested in that second and third quarterback in terms of like making sure you have the right person that can come in and win you ball games. Takes this game away from Zappe for a sec, but just look at like the whole league in terms of like the teams that are in contention. You got Pittsburgh with Trubisky going against the Colts, right? Both teams have a backup. They're both in playoff contention. You got Cincinnati in playoff contention playing with a backup. Cleveland in contention playing with a backup. You got, Minnesota, the Vikings playing with a backup right now. So there's tons of Chargers. I don't know if they're in contention right now, but their quarterback is done for the year. There's so many teams that have that they're playing with like second and third string quarterbacks right now. And that's why, I agree with Brady with when he said that, it's just bad football being played. To go back to your question, why is Zappe more prepared than Mitch was? It just comes down to coaching. That at the end of the day, right? They still look how excited the Patriots players were when they won the game. They're all in. They're playing hard for Bill Belichick. I don't see that same energy. I don't see that same effort. I don't see that same pride for Mike Tomlin.
Listen, I'm a Zappe fan only because he is better than Mac Jones. At least, right now. I don't know if, his draft status, all that stuff, but he's 3-1 as a starter. Let's keep it going. Just keep it going. Even if we don't get a top 5 pick, I think that I like what I'm seeing. I'm not saying that Zappe is an all-star. I'm just saying he's a game manager. I know that Cam Newton said, all these people are game managers. Listen, you don't need a superstar. Let other people be the superstar. Purdy, let other players be the superstar. Dak, let other players be the superstar. I just want him to be a game manager, and that's, against Steelers, obviously that was good enough.
Well, that against the Steelers, yes, that was good enough, but take it with a grain of salt. It's the Steelers is what I'm trying to say. Don't be shocked if he comes out and lays an egg for the rest of the next 3-4 games to where we got left.
I don't expect him to lay an egg. I know the 3 games coming up are tough.
What did he do last week, the week prior?
That was in bad weather.
Let's not make excuses.
It was cold.
Let's not make excuses.
Listen, what's in the past is in the past. Okay. If you want to talk about the past, you lost to 2-10 team.
Yes, I know, twice. Right.
So don't tell me.
But I'm at least admitting my team is trash, right? You're trying to make excuses and say Zappe is the answer or make you the answer.
City, Zappe's not the answer. It's not exactly blowing off heads of football players. So I have a light at the end of the tunnel with Zappe. So let's quickly go over our Week 15 predictions.
Wait, let's talk about our upset specials.
Oh, yes. Who was your upset special?
So, Green Bay. I'm proud of this, right? Green Bay favored by 6.5 in New York. They play the Giants. I picked the Giants to win 24-23, and guess what? The Giants won 24-22. I almost had this perfectly, again, what's his name? DeVito? Is that his name? Listen, he's a decent quarterback. He's not a starter in this league. Another situation with team playing with a backup. He's not the answer. He's not going to be a franchise quarterback. Having said that, I thought Green Bay has looked a little bit lackluster of late, and for them to travel all the way to New York, Giants with all this momentum, if you will, this energy, that I really do believe in, like positive energy with the whole DeVito situation. You see guys actually playing hard. That's all it took, for them to pull out a win. So that'll work now, right? For maybe a couple games. That's not a long-term answer for them, but good job by the Giants. And I'm going to give myself a pat in the back for almost getting this score perfect.
So if it works for the New York Giants, why wouldn't it work for New England?
Positive energy?
Yes.
So where's the positive?
Sappy, that's a positive.
But it wasn't a positive 2 weeks ago, right? You got to win. You got to go out and win.
And Tommy DeVito lost.
If I think about Browning for Cincinnati, that's a positive because he's winning, right? He's playing well.
Game by game.
It is game by game, but
so
he's
let's
winning.
be happy for Sappy.
Okay, all right.
You're like going, he's stuck against the Chargers. Yes,
yeah,
but he didn't. He didn't against the Steelers because we own the Steelers.
Listen, he owns the Steelers, but when I say positive, I mean positive, making your fan base excited. No one's excited about Zappy. People are more pissed that you won the game, right? Well, they're more upset
that's a whole different
that you won the game. They're like,
that's a whole different conversation.
Get on the same page, Zappy. You're not supposed to win this. No, people are more upset about him winning than anything else.
Listen, that's a whole different fan base conversation about the Pats and whether or not they want to keep Belichick. That's, I like I always say, there's two fan bases. Mm-hmm. There's the one that want to get rid of Belichick and everything that comes, and then there's the ones that are, hey, just take it day by day, day by day. My upset special, I went with Philly beating Dallas 28-24. It was 3.5 underdog, but then Dallas came and whooped Philly 33-13. Again, this is the regular season, and I want to applaud Dallas for doing it, but can you do it when it counts?
Yeah.
That's what I want to see. And, this was a good barometer for Dallas and the way they stand. Are they in first place in the division now?
I don't think so.
Let me just check real quick before I start shitting on Dallas. So Dallas is in first place.
Oh wow, okay.
So
they're both 10-3.
Hey, good for them. Good for
4-1 in division.
Will they get the number one spot? That remains to be seen.
Probably not.
San Francisco has the same record. They just don't.
Philly has the same record.
Philly has the same record. Well, what division is tougher though? The West or the NFC East?
East. I'd say.
I would say the East too. Only because we just talked about the New York Giants maybe crushing some hopes. But yeah, good for Dallas, good for the Cowboys fans. Finally, they have their say this week, and we'll talk about them during our power rankings. So Ron, week 15, we have on the docket Kansas City at New England, and I just updated the spread. It's 7.5.
Okay.
It was 9.5. Now it goes down to 7.5.
Wow.
Ron, what's your prediction?
Wow. So I wrote 26-10, Kansas City winning, and I do think Kansas City is going to win. But I'm starting to wonder if this game is going to be a lot closer. There are a lot of issues on Kansas City, and there has been. There's no great team outside of San Francisco. I think they're on a level of their own right now, the way they're playing. I think every team has a flaw. Kansas City's flaw has been known the entire year. They don't have any receivers. So I think this game might be close. I wrote down 26-10. I'm going to change it to, I'll make it 18-10. Kansas City wins.
This is one that, the over-under is 37.5. I went continuing my streak. Week 15, New England winning 24-17, because I know that if you watch Kansas City, the first drive is all scripted, right? They just follow a script. But as soon as you throw a monkey wrench in that script, they like, oh, bail us out. Andy Reid, oh, bail us out. Offensive coordinator. Offensive coordinator is no longer there. He left. So it's all on Andy Reid. I have a good feeling about this Kansas City New England game. So I picked New England to win this game.
You were going to pick them anyways.
Yeah,
just to be clear.
But I did get close to the over and under. The next game, Ron, is Pittsburgh at Indianapolis. Again, I updated the spread. It's 1.5. It used to be 2.5. Ron, what's your prediction?
I'm going Colts. This game's in Indianapolis. I don't think, from what I've heard, from all the interviews and stuff, that I'm not expecting anything to change with the Steelers' culture and their effort, and just their performance on the offensive side of the ball. I got them Colts winning 20-17. I'm probably being a little bit generous with the 17 points that I'm giving them, but I don't have faith in Tomlin, and I think the Cardinals game was probably could be the beginning of the end for Mike Tomlin. We'll get to coaches at the end of the podcast, but yeah, I don't have any faith in the Steelers anymore.
Well, the over-under is 42.5, which I thought was kind of...
That is high.
That is very high, but I still got the Steelers winning 17-10. I just feel like the defense... is TJ Watt going to be there? Or no?
Yeah. Well, he's in concussion protocol along with Highsmith. So, but they both are practicing in a limited basis. So we'll see if they're able to clear him by Saturday. It's a Saturday game.
And Minkah is still playing, right?
Yeah, with a cast on his hand.
Yeah, I mean, I know the defense is banged up, but Indianapolis scored, 10 points, 7 points that game in Germany. I feel like if you can play them straight up, Minshew will make a mistake. So I have them winning, Steelers winning 17-10.
That's a lot of confidence for a team that just allowed Zappy to look like Joe Montana.
Well, is Minshew next?
Minshew?
Yeah, is he the next to look like Joe Montana?
I think Minshew's better than Zappy.
Well, yes, he's definitely better.
So it wouldn't shock me if he throws for 300.
Oh, 300. Wow. Mm-hmm. That is, Zappy only threw for 240. Now you're saying Minshew's going to have
240 in like a half,
Yeah, basically.
They just didn't do anything the second half.
Anything, yeah. Ron, who is your upset special?
I'm going with the Washington LA game. Rams are favored by 6.5, I believe. I got Washington going there and winning 28-27. I don't know why. This is probably like the third or fourth time I've picked Washington. I just like that team for whatever reason. I'm a big Howell fan. I'm a big what's their coordinator's name? Their offensive coordinator.
Eric Bieniemy.
Yeah, I'm a big Bieniemy fan. So, and the Rams, they're playing really well. They're in contention right now for a playoff spot, but I have a feeling Washington's going to go in there and shock them.
I have Baltimore at Jacksonville. Baltimore's favored by 2.5. I have Jacksonville winning 24-20. Listen, Jacksonville cannot lose 3 games in a row and expect to win the division. I think this is a do or die game as far as the division is concerned. I think they're going to ball out. I think they're at home. Trevor Lawrence, I know he got banged up, but he's still practicing, he's still playing. So, hey, you need to win this game. This is a must win for Jacksonville. That's why I picked them. Ron, let's go on our power rankings. Who is your top 5 teams for week 15?
Yeah, so the only team I think that has jumped into my top 5 now that wasn't there before, I think, is Dallas. So San Francisco, I have number 1. They were number 1 last week. I got Baltimore at number 2. They were at number 2 last week. I got Dallas sliding all the way up to the 3rd spot. They weren't in my top 5 at all. I got Miami in the 4th spot. They were there last week as well. And I got Philly with another loss, dropping to the 5th spot. And yeah, I'm not going to completely... There's problems in Philly, but I'm not going to... And problems in Miami, right? So they just lost, besides losing the Tyreek Hill to injury this game and, losing the game, they just lost their center for the year, right? So... and then Kansas City lost too. So all the top teams are losing right now. So I think Philly is still a contender, and they'll be there. They're just not playing well right now, but I think they'll get through it. So I kept them in my top 5.
The only change from last week was that I took out Philly because I don't like to see teams struggling this late in the season. And we'll go over it when we do the coaching and all that stuff. But I actually inserted Cleveland into my top 5.
Wow.
Because I was really impressed by Joe Flacco. I mean, he was literally in his couch raking leaves.
And he's right back to the bench, to the practice squad.
Right back to the practice squad, right back to throwing touchdowns. I was impressed. Not too bad. Now I know, is it DTR? Is he...
Yeah, I think he's
good
back.
To go now. Listen, they can do things with DTR that they can't do with Joe Flacco, but if they keep this up, they're in 2nd place right now. They might give Baltimore a run for the money.
No, let's not go crazy.
Yes.
Listen,
yes. If Baltimore loses this week and Cleveland wins, I think that we have a competition.
No.
For the division.
I think Baltimore has overperformed this year completely, just given the state of the quarterback situation, their running back situation. They've overperformed, period.
Oh, you're talking about Cleveland overperformed?
Yeah,
not
Cleveland.
Baltimore. Okay,
Cleveland overperformed. But I think I knew Baltimore was going to be there where they're at. I had them winning the AFC to begin with, right? So I think Cleveland has overperformed so far, but I think they're going to come back to reality now, especially since not just the quarterback situation is in shambles. They had a bunch of injuries too from this last game, I believe. So they got a lot of key players that are going to be out for a significant period of time. I don't think they can withstand that because the defense is the only thing that keeps them in ball games. And now you got some injuries on that side of the ball. I think the fairy tale has ended for them, and you're going to see them go on a losing streak and play themselves out of the playoffs these next few weeks.
I don't know. Let me take a look at the schedule of the remaining games because I know they're 3-2 in the division. They have the Bears. That's a win.
I wouldn't say that's a win automatically.
Oh, you're hopping the Justin Fields train now?
Listen, Justin Fields is a guy who can go off for 150 yards rushing and then throw for a couple touchdowns. You're staring up, wondering how the other team just beat you.
No, they can do that against Detroit. I don't know if they can do that against Cleveland. Texans, not an automatic victory. The Jets, again, not an automatic victory.
Rodgers might be back by then. We'll see.
He's not coming back. I've been telling you that he's not coming back. The Bengals, they got Browning now. All of a sudden, he looks like a superstar. So it's not a layup per se, but the fact that they're 3-2 in the division and they don't have faced another opponent to the Bengals, I think they're in good place.
They're in good place. They have too many injuries though. And I think that's going to be their downfall. And I don't trust their quarterback situation at all. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's why they cracked my top 5. I feel good about that defense.
You think if they were to play, let's say, Philly right now, you think they beat Philly because you have them above Philly, or Kansas City?
I think that defense can put hers in his place, and I think that defense can, especially Ward. I think that those receivers, Kansas City is, the receivers are not good.
Yeah.
Even if they open, they still drop balls, so it doesn't matter. All right, Ryan, let's talk about coaches. We made a list. Let's go with the fired coaches at the end of the season that we think. Who is your number 1?
All right, so I'm going to go fired quarterbacks. These are guys, no matter what they do, they're not going to be able to turn the season around, and they're out.
They're not coming back.
Ron Rivera is my number one guy. Not just because of like the performance the last, I don't know how many years. I think he's always been an overrated coach to me, but you got a team with a new ownership and stuff like that. They're going to be ready to make a move from Rivera.
Ron Rivera was also my number one guy. Like you mentioned, new ownership, they need to change that whole culture, and it starts with your head coach. Who's your number two, Ron?
Staley, Chargers coach. Underperformed underperformed below, I think, what their expectations are. I think they thought they had a playoff team, a team that was not just capable of going to the playoffs, but winning playoff games and maybe getting them to the Super Bowl, with their quarterback and stuff. And he's supposed to be some offensive genius, and he hasn't been able to do that. And, this season, I think it's just the end for him, just the way that the season has gone.
I have Staley at number two, but then I was looking like Justin Herbert is 30-32. He has a losing record.
Yeah. So is that him or is it Staley not getting the best out of him? Is it Staley?
Because before Staley, they had another coach, a black dude, and he still wasn't winning. So
he won he had like a 9-6 or 10 a really great record to the year before he got fired, and all of a sudden he had like one bad season. They got rid of him like real quick.
So I know he drafted Herbert. So was it Herbert or was it the coach?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to tell because I know that every stat Herbert is gonna probably crush it, but I mean, did he get an extension? I probably did.
Yeah.
So he's probably going to be there for a while. So
let's put it like this: if you were to ask me at the end of the season, if I would get rid of Tomlin and if I would trade him, I would trade him to the Chargers for Herbert. I would take Herbert as my quarterback over Kenny Pickett for what I've seen so far, and start all over with a new coach.
So is Tomlin? So you trade Tomlin?
Yes.
Not for a draft, but for Herbert.
Yes, I would. Okay. I would.
Okay.
And that's what I'm trying to say there is I do have faith in Herbert. I think he has a lot of tools. I don't think he has had a lot of talent necessarily around him. Like Allen's good, the running back's good.
He had a good tight end for a couple of years.
Yeah,
right?
but the coordinator, the play call, the play designs hasn't been great. Definitely the game management from Staley has been horrific, right? He's cost them games. So what I'm saying is I think Herbert can be what I think we all expect him to be, which is a top 5 quarterback in this league. He just hasn't played like it. And I think with the right coaching, he can get back to being that.
What I'm saying is I'm not going to put Herbert top 5 quarterback anymore. I feel like if you're under 500 or just teetering in 500 status, you can be a top 5 quarterback. Who is your number 3, Ron?
Arthur Smith. And there was an article I think I forwarded to you about how he's supposed to be safe despite what happens. But I'm keeping him in my fired column. Listen, I think this is his second year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
A lot of expectations for Atlanta this year. Probably unrealistic expectations, I think. They're playing with a quarterback who hasn't been, he's his second year. He hasn't really performed that well. They drafted Kyle Pitts thinking that, he's going to be a superstar. Haven't been able to do that, anything with him. I think he's out. I think he's going to be fired despite what happens and despite what they, is reported out there, in the news.
Yeah, I think this whole wait and see style, it's like, listen, wait and see is just prolonging the inevitable. It's like, you're going to get rid of this guy. It's writing is on the wall. He doesn't know how to use Kyle Pitts. He doesn't know how to use Bijan Robinson. He has Drake London, but never has come to fruition. So this is what, we were talking about earlier. It's like, if you are considered an offensive coach, previously he worked for Tennessee Titans. offensive coordinator. You got to develop these players, not just call plays. You got to like actually teach them something, and I don't think that's happening in Atlanta at all. I went with the Chicago coach Eberflus. I might be pronouncing it wrong, but I think, if he wins, or God forbid, if Chicago makes the playoffs somehow, some way, I think he might save his job. I know I have him on the list as being fired, but I think he finally is learning how to use Justin Fields the right way.
Yeah. So I don't have him on my list to be fired or on the hot seat, to be honest with you. I think a lot of it, with their issues have been all about like the talent around him. And I know this year they went out and got some additional players. They got a receiver and all that stuff. But there's a lack of talent there. I think they probably feel like they're unsure about what Fields is and what he can be. And they'll probably go out in the draft and look at a quarterback. So I get the sense that, and this is just my gut, that he's going to be back next season with the new quarterback under the helm. Because I feel like they're going to put the blame more so on just missing on the draft with Fields, just not surrounding him with talent.
So, we were arguing about this earlier about Fields. Would you trade for Fields? Would you just give up on Fields? Because that's basically what they're talking about.
Yeah. So, listen, if you don't have a guy who can really develop Fields into being a better pocket passer, then I'm trading him. Like, if you don't have confidence to be able to develop him, I'm moving on and finding someone they can throw the ball. At the end of the day, this is a passing league. You got to be able to pass the ball. I don't care if you can run for 2,000 yards and how good your legs are. You got to be able to pass the ball. And I don't think Justin Fields has figured that part of it out yet. To be honest and to be fair, I don't think they've necessarily surrounded him with sufficient talent. But from what I've seen, he's been so inconsistent, missing so many easy throws. I think it would be in their best interest to move on. Just like, by the way, same situation with Kyler Murray in Arizona, which we'll get to because that coach is on my list as well. But there's teams that have quarterbacks that they gotta make a decision on.
So who's your number 4 coach to be fired?
Tabor, if that's how you pronounce the name, for Carolina's interim coach. I think they're gonna move on from him. They're 2 or 3 whatever their record is. He's gone.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, my number 4 is Pierce, the interim coach for the Raiders. And the Raiders, they won that first game, and then for some reason their offense is just terrible. It's like we mentioned earlier. If you don't have a good quarterback, you're gonna suffer in this league. And if you don't have a good backup quarterback, well, kiss your hopes goodbye, because it's just not gonna happen. And I don't think that Pierce is sticking around. He just is not doing enough. Who is your number 5?
So Gannon. Going back to what I was saying about the Cardinals and making a decision on Kyler Murray, right? So it was Gannon who wanted Murray, and that has been a disaster, I think. I think it's time for them to move on and start completely new. New quarterback, new coach, new coordinator, new everything. I think that's the direction they need to go in. I think he will be canned at the end of the season, despite Murray not being fully healthy most of the season. They're going to move on, I think, at the end of the year.
And I have Gannon, but I have Gannon under the hot seat because, Kyler Murray, I think he's basically untradeable because he has that guaranteed contract, right? So they have to figure out what kind of player Gannon has in Kyler Murray. I don't think they get rid of him. This is his first year. I don't think that they get rid of him after the first year. Maybe the second.
Who's first year?
Gannon.
How long? No, I think he's been there longer, hasn't he?
This is his first year. He was with the Eagles last year, defensive coordinator, and then this year he went with Arizona. This is his first year.
So who was their coach last year?
Oh, I don't know who was the coach last year.
I feel like I need to look. I thought he was the guy who brought in.
No, he basically inherited this Kyler Murray contract.
Gotcha.
I don't think that he's gonna pay for it with his job. He's definitely in the hot seat because
Okay.
who was the coach?
I don't know, but yeah, you're right. This is his first. So scratch that. I'm not gonna put him on the fired list because it's not his fault that what he inherited. So
yeah, I don't. That's why I'm not. He's in the hot seat, but I don't think he's gonna get fired. Okay, so now we're moving into people in the hot seat. Oh, my number 5 was Tabor, and we already talked that he's probably not gonna make it as interim coach. Who do you have on the hot seat?
So I have McDermott. You want me to go through all of them or just
no? Why do you have McDermott?
So because I think again, if you look at the team and the results, it's been an underperformance. I got Tomlin on this list too at the bottom, but like the expectation for Buffalo is that they would be in the playoffs and in a Super Bowl, period. Right? So it seems like every year they've regressed, not improved, despite making a lot of free agent signings, trading for players and stuff like that. The team's gotten worse. And, I think they're missing, they probably feel like they're missing out on an opportunity, with Josh Allen.
Well, that window is closing.
The window's closing. And, I think it's going to fall on McDermott because you've gotten rid of your coordinator at this point, right? And most often, like when you get rid of a coordinator mid-season, you're the next person to go. So I think it's a matter of time. I think the writing's on the wall for McDermott. If they don't get into the playoffs, for sure, if they lose out or don't make the playoffs, why would you keep him?
Yeah, I have McDermott in the hot seat as well. Number 6, I have Tomlin and Belichick combined. The only reason why I have them combined is because when I looked at my list, they're the only 2 quote-unquote Hall of Fame coaches that are on the hot seat. And we already talked about Tomlin and the fact that losing back-to-back games, the offense is terrible. Same thing with Belichick, worst season ever. Offense is terrible. I don't think that they're going to get fired per se, but I feel like there's a microscope on them. Like big microscope. I think that, this week Belichick was asked, hey, are you gonna not work here anymore? And he was like, I'm on to Kansas City. They asked him like 3 different times, hey, have you had a conversation with Robert Kraft? I'm on to Kansas City. Which
he would have done anyways.
He would have done anyways. If you go way back, he always does this.
Yeah.
I'm not giving you anything.
Yeah.
I'm not giving you anything. So it's like,
it's comical.
Yeah, to me, it's like, and I know that some of those journalists are the same ones from the years ago. So I'm like, didn't you learn your lesson? He's not going to give you a hint, a hairline of what's going on. But I do have Tomlin and Belichick on the hot seat. I think that Tomlin just needs to improve the Steelers to the point where they could have a chance to make the playoffs. I mean, I did the count. There's 12 teams on the playoff hunt. 12 teams. And that's not including the division leaders. So you're talking about 4, 8. You have 20 teams out of 32 that still have a chance to make the playoffs. This is what the NFL wanted, just so that they don't lose viewership, so that every fan base is like, my team can make it. I know they can. Hey, you know what? Good for them. Good for the NFL. But I know I'm going to sound like an old man here. I remember back in the day when, 4 teams made it and you were like, my team is so good. My team has a chance because your team was good. When the team, it's like a 7th round wild card game, you have no chance.
Yeah,
you have no chance. Mm-hmm. You barely made it at 9-8, whatever the case might be. And it's like, come on, man. You're not, it goes back to like, are you putting a good product out there, or is it all hype, So, anyways, I digress. This is why I have Tomlin, Belichick. Who is your number 7?
Yeah, so I got Belichick next at number 7. So he made my list right there. I think I have him higher than Tomlin. I think, with Belichick, the performance this season, just how he's handled things the last 2 seasons, I think he deserves to be on the hot seat. Now, if they continue to play hard for him, maybe he can change Robert Kraft's mind. I don't believe that story, by the way, I sent you about him being communicated already that he's going to be out. I don't believe any of that stuff. But I do think he is on the hot seat, and he's got to show that he still has his team supporting him.
And Ron, I saw the story that you sent me about him on the hot seat, and it's like, listen, maybe after the Germany game, Robert Kraft might have said something in front of the janitor. And then 2 weeks later, sources tell me that he was going to get fired. Who are your sources? The janitor? It's like, yes, rich people say dumb things all the time. It doesn't mean that's what's going to happen. Some of these reports, you just look at them and just like, what?
Yeah.
And now the reporters backing away, maybe he's taken out of context. No, I missed that part. Yeah, he's like, oh, maybe he's taken out of context. Now he's taking all these bombardment from left and right about what he said. Yeah, it's listen, if you come out and say this, put your name on it. Say who told you, or say some source higher up, but just don't say oh, a source of a source told me. Who do you have at number 8?
So you had McDermott, by the way. I don't think you touched on that.
Oh yeah, I had McDermott, and I agree with everything you said. This window is shutting down.
Yeah. I got at number 8, Pierce. So interim coach. They got to perform better for them to give him the job, next season as a full-time coach. So, he's on the hot seat for sure. Let's see how the rest of the season goes. But yeah, I think the odds are stacked against him to grab that full-time head coach job.
Not only that, but look at your owner. Your owner has a weird haircut. He has, his girlfriend is 20 years younger. Have you seen his haircut?
Yeah.
It looks like he puts a bowl and he just cuts it and he's like, I'm done. I'm like, dude, you got tons of money. Just hire a hairstylist. I don't know. Whatever. I got as number 8 on the hot seat, Arthur Smith. I was going to have him on the fired side of things on my list, but then I was like, oh, well, maybe if he figures it out, maybe if they win the division, because division is still winnable. So I don't think he would get fired if he won the division. So I have him on the hot seat. Who do you have as number 9?
LaFleur. This is a name that no one really talks about, but you think about the Packers, where they're at this year, they're okay. But if you think about where they were with Rodgers, they were just okay also, right? So again,
and they're technically in contention too.
Yes, but your goal is to not just be in contention, to be in the playoffs, period, right? You couldn't do it with Rodgers, who some would say is still a top 5 quarterback in this league. And if you couldn't do it with him, you want to get him out. You didn't like the way things were, and now you're potentially not getting to the playoffs with Love. I think he needs to make the playoffs for the team to take a long, hard look at the coach. I know I would, to say, well, you had Rodgers, you couldn't do it, you didn't want him, you wanted Love, you have him, and now you're not in the playoffs. I think they're going to take a long, hard look at LaFleur.
See, I disagree, because I think, number 1, it wasn't him who pushed Rodgers out. It was, they didn't want to pay Rodgers the $15 million.
Yeah,
you can spread out that $50 million and make a good team. Because Jordan Love is not getting paid $50 million. Now, is it Jordan Love's first year? Yes. Yes, I think that they're going to give him a break because it's his first year. And like I mentioned earlier, they might make the playoffs. Now, that might not be good enough for us, championship or bust, but for Green Bay, I know they don't have a true GM. It's, they spread the wealth as far as the ownership is concerned, but I just feel like if they make the playoffs, his job is safe.
Yeah, no, I agree. If they make the playoffs, I just don't know if they're going to make the playoffs, and they're sitting at 6-7 right now. So I think if they're in the outside looking in, you got to look at your whole team and say, is this the right guy? Because we got rid of Rodgers. We didn't want to pay him. He didn't do well with Rodgers anyways, right? So like if you had one of the Hall of Fame quarterbacks and you couldn't make it, now you got a guy that you wanted to develop and stuff, and you haven't made it again, you got to at least look at it to say, do we have the right person?
And again, they got a pretty easy schedule. I mean, except for the Buccaneers, they got the Panthers, they got the Vikings, they got the Bears. We know the Bears are up and coming, but they should. I mean, I thought they were gonna beat the Giants and they didn't. But they got the Bucs at home, and they got the Bears at home, and they got Carolina on the road, Vikings on the road. So let's say they go 2-2. Is 8 wins enough?
No.
3-1. I think 9 wins might be enough to at least get in. Of course, it depends on what the rest of the league does.
Yeah, it's going to depend on. You definitely got at least two teams in the East, right? Dallas and Philly. You got at least one team in the North with Detroit, Minnesota fighting for a playoff spot. You got one team for sure in the South, right? Whoever is the winner, divisional winner. And then San Francisco and the Rams, they're not fully out of there. 6-10, but not fully out. And I wouldn't count Seattle out either at 6-7, excuse me. Being out of it. So Green Bay is at 6, and they're all 6-7 at this point. So
there's a lot of, I'm telling you, there's a lot of teams that are still hopeful.
Yeah.
My number 9 was Gannon. We already talked about it. He's in the hot seat, but I don't think he'll get fired. Ron, who is your final participant here?
Tomlin. I put him here at number 10. I don't believe, to be honest with you, that he's going to get fired unless they go out and just lose the rest of the way. He has a losing record, and he's lost the locker room, and it's evident that he's lost the locker room.
But do you want him coaching the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I'm okay with him coaching if he can get the players on board with his messaging. And Big Ben said it, in his podcast. I don't know if you saw it or listened to it, but the culture and the standard is not the same as what it used to be. The standard has changed. And, Big Ben said, the culture is completely different, and maybe it needs to be different. Maybe it needs to, be different. But he basically said that Tomlin needs to get out there and get these guys on board, right? We don't have the same players that are showing that they're leaders. So you as a head coach need to be that leader. And I feel like the players just aren't listening to that message anymore. And maybe they need a new voice potentially, but we'll see what happens the rest of the way. Again, I think if he loses out, he's going to be on the hot seat for damn sure.
So he's not going to be fired, but he'll be in the hot seat.
It's going to be talked about. The Steeler way, as you know, is to play out the contract. He has one more year, and then they'll probably move on if he has a repeat of this next year. That's the Steeler way. That's how we do things. But if he loses out, I think they're going to take a look to see, do we want to go through one more year of this? And have a Matt Canada situation where we know we had the wrong guy, kept him anyways, and we had to fire him in the middle of the season. I don't think they're going to want that for Tomlin, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But, I think Tomlin has lost his voice, and I think maybe it's time for someone new. Now, if he does stay around, then if it would be in his best interest, just like if Belichick stayed around, for him just to get somebody in there that knows what the hell that they're doing from an offensive standpoint. So that, when he goes up there and has a press conference about why he loses, he's not spending 9.5 minutes of his 10-minute conversation talking about the defense and 30 seconds about Trubisky and how he thinks, Trubisky played well as the game went on. That's all he had to say. This press conference when you lose to a 2-10 Patriot team after coming off a loss again to a 2-10 Cardinals team. So he has to get somebody in there that knows what they're doing with the offense and just be completely hands off and say, you own it, you speak to it. Because right now it's an embarrassment. He goes every press conference and just talk about the defense. It has nothing to say whatsoever about the offense. Like he has, that he's not the coach, the head coach of the team.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. This is how I look at Tomlin. I don't think he basically inherited Big Ben, right? And Big Ben, and then he was winning. He won a Super Bowl with Big Ben, and then Big Ben retired. And then it all went down to hell, right? Because if you don't have a quarterback to be your...
But see, let me stop you right there. Because I think I've heard so many people simplify it by saying, you just don't have a quarterback. That's not your... No, it's more than that. The quarterback didn't go out there and give up 21 points to freaking Zappy in the first half.
But
You're
listen,
in charge of the defense.
You
what
give
happened?
up 21 points. That's the league average. 21 points is the league average.
In the first half.
And
to a
nothing
team
in the
that's been
second
averaging
half.
like 17.
Nothing in the second half.
The team that's been averaging 7, you can't. You're the head coach. You're a defensive guy.
Listen, you need to have them ready, and maybe they didn't.
Yes,
but then the second half they were ready. They scored defense, 18 points.
Yes,
they didn't allow any points. I just think that he doesn't have the quarterback to win it all. And same thing for Belichick. Same thing for most of these coaches on this list. They don't have a quarterback that they can trust, especially if you are a defensive coach. If you don't have a quarterback that makes plays for you, you're going to suffer. You're going to be 500 or less or whatever the case.
Your job as a head coach, I don't care if you're defensive mind or offensive mind, your job as a head coach is to make sure everybody on your team is prepared and can develop, right? They have the right leadership. That goes back to his hiring decisions, right? Who you chose to be your coordinator, your quarterback coach, your running back coach, your offensive line coach. That's all on Tomlin. That's his job. So if you don't have the right, forget about who you have as your quarterback. If you don't have someone to develop him, that's on you at the end of the day. You can't say, I didn't have a quarterback and that's why. No, your ass didn't have the right people around him. And that's why you lost, right? So
I think he's a quarterback. Cool, because you getting ready to get rid of Pickett, right?
Even if I get rid of Pickett, it doesn't matter who you bring in.
That's what I mean. If you need a good quarterback.
If you can bring in Tom
you just
Brady
said that
today,
you would trade Justin Herbert.
I would.
And why? Because he's a good quarterback.
That's the first step, though.
That's what I mean.
You still need a coordinator, right? So bring Tom Brady in. How do you think Tom Brady's going to do in this offense?
Tom Brady was an offensive coordinator. He was.
Exactly. That's my point.
That is my point. You need a quarterback.
That's my point.
You need a quarterback, a good quarterback.
So you want me to find the next Tom Brady is what you're saying? This is why
coaches suffer, because finding a good quarterback is the hardest thing.
It's not the reason why they suffer. What I'm saying, as a coach, your job is to draft the right players, one, and then have people to develop them. We just talked about guys who've been fired. Look at Staley, right? You got what everyone says is the top 5. You have not developed him. Whether it's you or the coordinator or whoever, you haven't developed him.
I come to the conclusion that it's not just the coach, it's Justin Herbert too.
Oh, well, I haven't come to that conclusion yet with Herbert.
Listen, if you're a 500 quarterback with 2 different head coaches.
I haven't come to that conclusion yet with Pickett, right? But, at the same time, Big Ben was there and he had his worst year under Matt Canada, right? Who's your hire, right? And I know Big Ben was like half hurt, 30 whatever years old at the time and all that. So I get it. But it's your horrible decision to put Canada there that is the reason why we're in the position we're in right now. Plain and simple. That's your hire. That's who you chose.
I think until you get a good quarterback, not just a decent one. I think Pickett was trending downward. But until you get a good quarterback, same with the Pats, until they get a good quarterback, this whole Belichick is gone after this year, that's still gonna be hanging over the heads. And we know Belichick can coach. Maybe he's not a good drafty or he's not a good GM, but he can still coach. So why is the cloud?
But that's the difference, I think, between Belichick and Tomlin. Belichick is a good coach. Tomlin, I told you, is a good cheerleader, right? He's the rah-rah guy. He's the guy who goes in the locker room, gets their guys pumped up, motivated, go out there and play the Steelers way, Steelers culture. They go out and bust their ass and they win the game.
So why did he win a Super Bowl with Big Ben, but not now?
Because the players they're not bought into that anymore. That's my point. He's a cheerleader.
He inherited players in.
It's not just about inheriting. I'm just saying he inherited players. Yes, he inherited some talent, right? He has talent today, but the players that were there bought into that, right? They bought into Mike Tomlin, and they rightfully so, because he's a good communicator, right? He's a good motivator. That's who he's been the past 12, 13, how many every years. What I'm saying is this year, players have tuned him out. They said, that ain't going to work for me. They just tuned him out, and it's not working anymore. So the one thing you're good at, being a motivator, speaker, and the players, that's not working anymore. You're not a X's and O's guy, right? You're Tomlin's not, right? We know that. Whether it's on defense or offense, he's just not that guy, So then what are you offering is my point, right? If you are supposed to be the guy that gets them motivated and they've tuned you out, obviously, what are you offering? What are you bringing? That's the point I'm trying to make with Tomlin. So I think a change of scenery would be great for him, because he can go somewhere and bring that to a new team with players who haven't, who need, to hear that.
So basically you're 50-50 on Tomlin.
Yeah, I am. I'm 50-50. I have to see players bought in. I got to see, and I don't care what the record is. I want to see players playing their hardest, bought in, trying to win the game. And I don't care if you finish with a losing record, winning record, that doesn't mean anything to me. At the end of the day, the standard is the standard. You got to get to the Super Bowl. You don't win a Super Bowl, you failed.
So Ron, you are 50-50 on Tomlin. My number 10, I put Robert Saleh there. I know that the Jets won just recently. I know that, the whole injury to Rodgers wasn't his fault. So I just put him on the hot seat because he has a dominant defense. And the way that he's been going back and forth with Zach Wilson, the way that he's going Tim Boyle for one game and then he dropped him. I don't think that he's going to lose his job, but I think that there's a microscope on the Jets. Do you agree, or do you think that he's safe?
I think he's safe. He has an excuse. I do agree with you with how they've managed the quarterback situation, but that goes back to what we were saying earlier. He's just not prepared for an injury to their starting quarterback. Don't have a competent, second guy or third guy that they trust. I don't know. I can't say he's failed them. The GM has failed them with not having someone there. So I think Saleh is going to get a pass. Had he had this record with Rodgers there, then yeah, he'd be gone for sure. But they're not. Are they completely out of it just yet? Trying to pull up their record real quick. I don't know if they're mathematically eliminated at this point.
I mean, they're 5-8.
Yeah.
I think if I look at the, the only people that are eliminated are the Pats. But, if I look at the playoff picture, they're way down the list.
Yeah.
I don't think that they're going to make the playoffs, basically what I'm saying.
No, they're not. But they finish strong. They get Rodgers back. He can actually get plays. And they win a couple games down the road, then he's coming. I think he's coming back regardless. I think it's just, he gets the pass this year. And I'm not saying he deserves it. I'm just saying he's going to get a pass.
I just don't like the way. I think he's playing the media, and I think that they kind of sniff it, but at the same time, there's so many homers for the Jets that they're like, oh really? Oh, we'll go along with it. I'm not buying it yet. And I think that the Pats play the Jets the last game of the year, and that's gonna define whether or not, first of all, we have a 15-game streak that they haven't beat the Pats. So maybe this is their chance. Maybe Rodgers comes back just for that game. Who knows? I just don't think Robert Saleh deserves another year. Not the way. I mean, I don't know. I haven't checked the statistics for the defense yet. Is the defense good? I don't know. I feel like every week they have a safe.
Yeah, they're really good.
Yeah, so and I know their pass defense is really good. So yeah, I mean, I guess his job is safe. I don't know. I just have questions about how he's handling everything. But again, it wasn't his fault that Aaron Rodgers got hurt. So yeah, he'll probably get a pass.
So let's talk real quick. Some guys we left off the list that maybe some people, if they are listening, if anyone listens, is questioning. Dable for the Giants. Bowles potentially, right, for the Buccaneers. There's still some guys out there that you're probably not thinking about that, that could be on the hot seat because
Bowles, they're leading the division right now. I don't want if they win that division, I think his job is safe.
But it'll be 2 years in a row that they have a losing record, right? I think whoever won the division last year had a losing record as well. So, I don't know. I just get the sense Tampa Bay is not all bought in on Bowles. And every time they lose, he gets hit hard. He gets hammered hard in the Tampa Bay, our local media here.
I think as long as Bruce Arians is in the Tampa Bay organization, I think Todd Bowles is safe because that was his guy, right? That's his guy. So he's going to defend him until they get rid of both of them. So I don't. And, Dable, we just mentioned that their positivity might win them some games at the end. So, hey, maybe they bring him back. They, again, the same thing with the Salah. It wasn't his fault that Daniel Jones got hurt, right? So maybe they bring him back just on that. I mean, there's some iffies out there. Dable, Bowles. Would you even say Allen for the Saints?
Probably not. No. That's another team that has had injuries to their quarterback. I know Carr's playing; he's underperformed, but I wouldn't put him there on the hot seat just yet.
Would you put Brable? Because the team is only 5-8.
5-8, but we've had 3 different starters, I think, at quarterback this year. So no, it's not his fault that.
No, it goes back to my point. You need a good quarterback.
Oh, you do, without a doubt. But at the end of the day, you still gotta be competitive, right? Tennessee just went out and won against Miami. The team is playing hard, right? Regardless, right? So it's not just about having a quarterback. It's is your team listening to you, and are you developing players? I trust Vrabel's doing that with Will Levis.
After he swung and missed with Willis.
With who? With
Malik.
Malik, yeah. That was, you can say swing and miss. That was a 4th round pick, I think. So that is just playing the lotto, basically. You don't know what you're going to get.
I don't know if this spot, I mean, you wouldn't, Carroll is still going to be there until he's.
Yeah, I think everybody else, for the most part, is safe. I'd be shocked if any of the other coaches get it. For the most part, I think we've touched on every team. Like I said, with the exception of Dable and Bowles, that might get it.
Yeah, I think again, there's 4 games left, so maybe they can save the jobs by winning out. And then they might not make the playoffs, but they might win out. In the case of the Giants and whatnot. So what do you have to say, Ron, to the Steelers fans out there?
I don't know what to say. Stay positive as much as you can. I don't know what's going to happen this week. Your guess is as good as mine.
They play Saturday night.
They play Saturday. We can look at these 2 losses and say this is the end of the road. That's kind of what I'm taking. Or you can look at it and say these are just 2 more games that Mike Tomlin loses to, a team that is not good, because we always play down to our competition, and we'll go out and beat teams that people think that we shouldn't beat. So maybe you look at it that way and say, okay, it's not a fluke. It's just what it is. That's how the Steelers play, and we'll go out and just win out. Hey guys, thanks again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Any questions or comments, feel free to hit us up on Shut Your Mouth Podcast at gmail.com. That's ShutYMPodcast at gmail.com. You can also hit us on Twitter or on Instagram at SYM Podcast. Thanks again.